What up, everybody? It's your boy Kentario. So as you can see, the frame seems to be picking up on my face throughout the entirety of that video. Sometimes you get some good skits, other times you do not. So I just wanted to go ahead and apologize in advance for the video that you're about to get. I know that can be annoying, but please forgive me. As of next time, that will not be an issue. Hope you guys enjoy. I'm back again for another episode of Christ in Comics, and today we are doing a review of the new MCU series, Ironheart. Now, I must say that surprisingly, this series was absolutely amazing, in spite of all the hate that the series is currently getting. Now, I will definitely tell you guys, one, I have never read an Ironheart comic book.
Whoa.
And at one point when the series was initially coming out in the comics, I was not a fan of Ironheart, but for separate reasons. You see, we have a lot of people hating on the series because there's this assumption of there being an excess of wokeness, but I didn't like Ironheart because I wasn't a fan of passing the mantle from one hero to another younger hero to take up that role. I had more respect for people doing their own original work and heroism and storylines. But after watching this show, I am now interested sitting down and actually reading the comic book. One of the things I do not look to do through this video is to overly regurgitate a lot of what you probably have already heard being said in regards to this series. So let's get into it. Now, when it comes to the series of Ironheart, it is about a young lady by the name of Riri Williams, who initially was called upon and introduced in Wakanda Forever to assist those in Wakanda alongside Shuri to, I guess you could say, just fight against Namor and the Atlanteans. But now she's getting her own series, and this is picking up in the aftermath of those events. And she's still trying to create her own Iron Man suit, or in this case, Iron Woman suit. But there's so much depth as to why she is attempting to create this armor. The series, however, starts off with her getting kicked out of MIT, having to go back home to live with her mother and figure out a way to get access to the resources to be able to create and build up her Iron Man suit, to perfect it, even to go as far as perfecting the AI aspect of it, the weaponry, minimizing, I guess you could say, the density or the weight of the armor. She's just constantly tweaking one thing after another. But in order to be able to fund that, she ends up partnering with another criminal group being led by a person by the name of the Hood, a minimal villain within Marvel Comics, but very well utilized for this show. In the midst of her attempting to assist them in their crimes, which primarily was petty thievery, but reveals later that people are losing their lives in the midst of this, and then it shifts into her no longer wanting to be a part of this and cutting ties with these people. As a matter of fact, even going to the extent of putting a stop to them. Not simply by beating up everybody, but finding out evidence for the person that's leading them, manipulating them, probably even lying to them, instead of simply, you know, like normal hero movies. They have to fight every single henchman and then fight the final boss. In this case, she's trying to almost convert the others and then fight the final boss. But in order for her to be able to pull this battle off, she may have to go the extra mile of incorporating magic into her armor in order to be able to fight against the Hood. Let's get into the Christian perspective. Now, of course, they do one very important thing in this show that we need to address as Christians watching it, and that is the introduction of magic being portrayed in here. Now, I know a lot of people are immediately going to look at me and say, well, if you can advocate for Doctor Strange, what would be the issue with magic being in Ironheart? Now, the first thing being, the enemy, the Hood, uses magic or the power of magic in order to do the things that he does, such as turning himself invisible, curving bullets, blocking bullets, and enhanced superhuman strength. Now, the reason where he gets this power from is this hood comes from another dimension that has access to quote-unquote limitless power, even though he can't do limitless things. Even the bullet curving thing made no sense to me. I was like, why bullets? Why are we curving bullets? I don't understand. Like, that part confused me. But that's where the magic's coming from, a different dimension. And even initially, the hood in the comics, with the little bit that I know, is magical power that is stemming from the dimension that Dormammu dwells in. Hence where you have that relationship to Doctor Strange. And even more so when you're looking at the hood, you kind of get that feeling, is that the same cape as what Doctor Strange wears? No, it's actually a different cape, different function, the whole nine. But magic is initially being introduced in the show through him because that's what he uses. Riri Williams, being curious as to how do I contend against someone using magic, goes to dabble into magic herself to figure out a way to contend against him. Now, her mother, who has a friend who, does the sage and does the herbal things and good magic, is the one that she ends up going to for help. Only for us to find out that her daughter, by the name of Zelma, makes me think of Velma, but Zelma used to be a student at at the sanctuary.
Got from the Comitage.
What's Comitage?
It's my reach school.
All the way in Nepal, where all the greatest sorcerers of our dimension train in magic arts and sciences.
Y'all ever heard of Doctor Strange?
She used to be a student there, but her mother pulled her out of it and began to teach her from home. In their investigation of what magic the hood is using, did they make this identification? Oh no, this is dark and evil and corrupt magic. This is getting into witchcraft. Now, if you've seen my video reviewing Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, you'll know how I feel about this. Because in Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange and what's his name? Wong? Yes, Wong. That's the thing. Wong points this out, that the magic that Scarlet Witch is using, that's witchcraft. That's different than the magic that we use. And I point out in regards to that movie that they are revealing through the rest of the story that they try to separate the magic that they practice versus witchcraft, when in all actuality, especially us as Christians, know that they're one and the same. And I would say that that same wisdom can be applied. Sorry that you guys are hearing my phone. 1 second. The same wisdom can be applied in regards to this show. Now, on the flip side, I want to point something out. I'm going to go back and forth here for just a moment. On the flip side, right? When it comes to the very character of Doctor Strange, his whole function is to keep peace and balance between these different dimensions and the different practices when it comes to magic, to not allow for these things to get out of control. They don't just get to simply go about doing all the willy-nilly magic that they want to, make their lives better, do all of this, that, and the third. They don't just get to play with magic all of the time. They keep the peace within the spirit realm because of the dangers of messing with these things frivolously. Where we Christians can connect to that is the function of a believer. There are people that end up having spirits and demons and other entities influencing and or corrupting their lives, and we show up through prayer, through fasting, through casting out evil spirits, through healing people, through helping people to become whole, leading them to Jesus Christ to bring them out of that, which is similar to the function of Doctor Strange. And that's where I can have a little bit of peace, being that they're separating themselves from dark magic and saying we need to have nothing to do with this. We don't want to mess with this. That's what the mother was saying. Leave this stuff alone. We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to deal with this. We need to separate ourselves from this. That's a type of wisdom that we should have when it comes to witchcraft, when it comes to magic. Where this becomes a problem, however, and this is where I get actually stuck myself, is it's one thing for them to just have Doctor Strange, who wasn't made to promote paganism or witchcraft as much as to establish a function for things in the spirit realm. When it comes to what they're doing through Zelma and her mother in Ironheart, being that Ryan Coogler is the director, Ryan Coogler is one that is for promoting different cultures and their practices and their beliefs, and where black people get into hoodoo and voodoo and things of that nature, and are trying to, even in this modern time, revamp that as a part of how we should be allowed to live and to function. A little bit of that is what's being meshed into here. The mother even has a moment where she's saying something that's a bit churchy. I can't remember the phrase, but she makes an almost churchy statement. But then you have the friend going around the apartment waving some sage. And then you have the mom talking about crystals and herbs and sages and calming techniques and things of that nature and meditations. And so it's like mixing of spirituality, and that makes that extremely concerning. And that's the thing I have to warn you about. The only thing I'll say that was actually really, really funny that was done in the show is, and I think she did it on purpose because Riri's shown herself to be a bit of a nerd, is she made this comment of magic must defeat magic, and I immediately thought of Jackie Chan Adventures with
Magic must defeat magic!
Uncle. Magic must defeat magic. Great time, man. I actually used to love that show, I'm not gonna lie to you. I might get in trouble for that for some Christians, but she came to the conclusion, let me say that she would have to incorporate magic in order to defeat someone that is using magic to fight against her. Now, what this leads to, and this is where it gets even more complicated, but it actually makes the show more interesting, is that after she defeats the Hood, she gets introduced to the mastermind behind the Hood even coming into fruition to begin with, and that being the closest to the devil we may even get in Marvel, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and even more so the most popular version of the devil in Marvel Comics, and that being Mephisto. Mephisto being that character that plays the stereotypical role of what people perceive demons and the devil to do, which is make contracts with people for their soul and offer them something in return. One of the things that he was offering Riri was that he could bring her best friend Natalie back to life. And ultimately, she ends up taking the bet. And as we've seen how as the Hood was corrupting the Hood as he used its power, her having made this deal and being able to now go back to having her friend alive again, we see those negative effects being illustrated here as well. Now you might think that I would say with the introduction of Mephisto and the main character who's supposed to be the good guy making this deal with Mephisto, that this is a bad thing for us as Christians to consume. In all actuality, I would say that that's a positive thing. It's a positive thing for us to witness heroes sometimes fail. It's a positive thing for us to witness the reality that sometimes the devil and the demonic forces actually end up winning out in certain situations and cases, because what do we have to deal with today? We have to acknowledge that people are possessed. We have to acknowledge that some people are being oppressed. We have to acknowledge that some people are being influenced by demonic forces. And it really leads us to begging the question, how is Ironheart going to break this contract, get set free, be delivered, as we would say? Are they going to go back to using the hoodoo or the other spells that Zelma has to offer? Are they going to go to Doctor Strange? Or is she going to go through this trial of believing in herself and her own intellect and technology breaking this thing? What is she going to do to get out of this? Which is a great question that we as Christians can ask when watching this series. But I definitely want to leave the ball in your court. With all of that being said, would you say that Ironheart is okay for Christians? If you were to ask me, my final conclusion is going to be yes. But you guys let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you guys for joining us tonight, and I hope that you have a blessed one, and I will catch you guys later. Peace.